Welcome back everyone. So today we're headed to my mom's place. I'm gonna do a repair on her toilet in the guest bathroom. So check this out. It's been like this since she's bought her condo, and I've been putting off this repair since. I'm expecting the toilet flange to be obviously broken, and that can be tricky to fix. She doesn't use this bathroom, but guests do, so she asked me to finally fix it. The toilet works perfectly fine, it just looks wacky with these shims. So I don't know what I'm about to get into, but there's only one way to find out, so let's go. So of course, the first step is to shut the water off so you can pull the toilet. Don't crank down on your water shutoff valve, especially if it's old. Once you feel it getting close to being closed, just give it small turns until it feels closed. Then flush the toilet. You want to get as much water as you can out of the tank. I hold the handle down, raising the flapper until I see no more water will empty. I next unscrew the toilet supply line. These are usually just hand tight. Water won't come pouring out unless you remove the fill valve. Next, I take a rag and soak up the last of the tank water and wring it out in the sink. I usually use a sponge, but can only remember and pack so many tools when I work on the road, but a rag works just fine. I next remove these toilet bowl caps. They weren't really installed correctly. You'll see me cut these bolts smaller at the end. I next remove the toilet bowl nuts. There are two, and I just use my ratchet with a deep socket. Once I break the nut loose, I use my socket to spin it by hand. I repeat that for the other side. And that's it, just two bolts hold the toilet down. After removing the two washers, time to pull the toilet. So I lift it up and I had a piece of cardboard ready to put it on. So next I see what the issue is. Someone previously tried to repair this. I need to clean this up so I can see what's wrong. I use my scraper and just start removing what's left of the wax ring and wiping it on another piece of cardboard I put next to me. I next unscrew the screws holding down the old repair ring. You have to be careful doing this. You don't want any of the screws to break. I'm slowing this part down so you can see how I'm doing this. The screw is tight, so I'm working it little by little. I'm purposely using a small 1/4-inch ratchet so I don't accidentally use too much force. Luckily, the previous person didn't bottom the screw out, locking it in by not drilling the hole correctly. So I finish this up getting the last screws, and I can finally lift up the old repair ring to check it out. Take a look at this. This thing is bent up real bad. I'm assuming they tightened the toilet bolts too tight. What do you guys think? Did they install it wrong? Cheap repair ring? My guess is still that they tightened the bolts too tight. Put it in the comments below if you have seen this before and what you think. I cleaned the flange up a little bit more, and I can see where the flange broke and why it needed a repair ring. It's not too bad. I'm thinking it's worth another try. I definitely don't want to try cutting the broken flange out unless I have to. So I give the flange a final baby wipe and dump the rest of the toilet water out into the bathtub. I didn't have any toilet water solidifier gel, but this method is not hard for me. I next work on cleaning up the toilet side. The wax ring held to the toilet when I pulled it. I just continue scraping away at the wax the best I can. It doesn't need to be perfectly clean. Let me show you what I picked up for this repair. It's by Odie, and this repair ring fits under toilets, and I'm hoping it doesn't bend like the last one. I dry fit it, just seeing where the holes line up that I'm going to use to install the Tapcon screws. Lining up the slots, everything is looking good. I'm going to use 2 3/4 Tapcon screws and a 532 masonry bit with my drill on its hammer setting. Alright, let's drill our first hole. I hold the repair ring with my left hand and drill with my right. I push down and drill for like a 1/2 inch, then lift up to allow the cement dust to come out of the hole, then push down and drill again. I keep repeating that action, leaving the drill hole a little longer than I need. I picked up these T25 torque bits, and I'm putting them in an extension with a quick release mechanism. After removing my masonry bit, I put the drill setting from hammer to drill and lower the speed to 1. I carefully screw the first screw 90% of the way in. I'm not screwing it all the way in because I need to remove it later. You will see why soon. I next realign the slots, pivoting the ring using that first screw, and mark my next drill hole with a Sharpie. Doing it this way helps with a more accurate alignment of your drill holes. I go ahead and drill the next hole, repeating my up and down technique. Drilling into the cement can be tricky, but I've done it so many times it's no biggie for me. I check my alignment and place the next screw in the hole I just drilled, and screw it in a little bit. I'm just using these screws to make sure everything stays aligned. I try to drill the next hole, but the way that tile edge is, I need to move the repair ring out of the way. So I skip that one for now, and go ahead and drill my third hole on this other side. I remove the second screw, and now I can move the repair ring out of the way and drill the fourth and final hole. I can see where I needed to drill the hole from the scratches in the tile from my first attempt earlier. This hole was tricky because it was right at the edge of the floor tile, so I had to chip a little bit of the tile away, then had a flat surface to be able to drill the hole, and finally drill it. Next, I removed the first screw and moved the repair ring to the side because I want to prep and clean everything for the final install. I use a vacuum to suck up the cement dust, especially in the drill holes. It could cause the screws to bind up or bottom out as you screw them in. Next, I take some silicone, and after determining where I need to lay my bead by dry fitting the repair ring, I apply silicone on the broken flange. This will make sure no water will get through under the repair ring. Next, I place it on the silicone, lining up the slots, and insert the 4 screws in the drill holes, giving them a few turns by hand. All that's left is to screw them in. After screwing 2 in, I use my hammer to reline everything up, then drive the other 2 screws in. I double check all the screws are tight, but you don't want to over tighten these screws. I have the drill clutch on a lower setting to ensure I don't over tighten them. I give a strong wiggle and it feels secure. I next give it a baby wipe, removing any silicone that's squeezed out. Next, I dry fit the toilet, just to make sure the repair ring doesn't hit any part of the toilet, not allowing it to sit flat on the floor. I find that's not the case, but the tile floor is not that even under the toilet, and I'm wiggling it around just to see where the high-low spots are on the floor tile. Next, I install the toilet bolts. They have this nut that holds them in place. I tighten them by hand as tight as I can. Then I hold the top of the bolt and tighten the nut with my needle nose pliers. You don't want the bolt shifting when you're trying to mount the toilet. I next align 2 screwdrivers to the bolts. You will see why in a second. And I take a measurement from the wall to the bolts to make sure they're equal distance to the wall. I'm using a standard wax ring because this flange is above the floor tile. I next peel away the plastic packaging around the wax ring. It's not hard to do, and I place the wax ring on the repair ring and everything is ready. I next lift the toilet, and you can see now how I'm using the 2 screwdrivers to align the holes in the toilet base to the screwdrivers. As I set the toilet down, the bolts come through the hole in the toilet base. I next install the washer and the nut on the right side and then the left. Then I use my ratchet to start screwing down the nuts. I always like to sit on the toilet to help squash down the wax ring, then continue tightening the nuts down. Notice how I choke up on the ratchet so I don't put too much force into this. I give the toilet a wiggle to see how secure I've gotten it so far, then continue, but listen to this next part. Uh-oh, that didn't sound good. I give the bowl another wiggle and it seems secure still. I reattach the toilet supply line and turn the water back on. I want to do some test flushes. While I was bracing myself on the toilet doing this, I notice it's wiggling it. I give it a shake and yup, it's loose. As I tighten the bolt, that flange piece broke completely, and now the repair ring is what will secure it. That's what I believe happened and knew was a possibility. That flange slot piece that was broken on the side snapped. I move the camera to a different angle and continue tightening it. Once the head of the bolt bottoms out on the repair ring, it will get tight again. So I keep wiggling and tightening. I'm being careful because I don't want to bend the repair ring like what happened before. So I just continue going back and forth from side to side, tightening little by little. The other side needed a lot more turns too once the left side popped, which was weird. After a final shake that confirms it's secure again, I give it some test flushes. I want to make sure the wax ring is making a good seal. I give it another flush and I'm not seeing anything. With everything looking good, I can cut the bolts and install the bolt caps next. I picked up these Everbuilt ones at HD. You can install them after the toilet bolts are installed. Others you cannot. This is how I did this. I screw on a second nut I will use as a die to clean up the threads. I was trying to cut the bolt just above the nut I just added, but cut it a little higher than intended. You can use a hacksaw to do this, but I like to use power tools, so I just use my Dremel. I try the cap and it fits, so I did cut enough off. Then I unscrew the nut, cleaning up the bolt threads from the cut. That allows me to screw on the part of these caps you install first that has inner and outer threads. Then the cap screws onto that. I repeat everything again for the second bolt. I screw on an extra nut and use my Dremel to cut the bolt to size. If you try to do it this way, don't hit the toilet with the blade slipping off the bolt. If this was a newer toilet, I would put a piece of cardboard to shield the toilet to protect it. I give it a quick wipe. The cutting gets metal flakes everywhere. Then I use my wrench again to unscrew the nut, cleaning up the threads as it's removed. If you're liking this video, please consider hitting the thumbs up and subscribing. It really helps my channel grow. I next screw on that first part that has the inner and outer threads, then screw the second cap onto that. The last step is to use silicone around the toilet. Watch how I do this, it's really easy. I first put painter's tape outlining the base of the toilet. This will protect the tile floor from any silicone that doesn't end up where you want it. You just put smaller pieces of tape to make the turns and larger pieces of tape for the straighter sections. I personally prefer the silicone around most of the toilet, but leave the back of the toilet unsiliconed to allow water to escape in the event of a leak. In addition, it's tough to silicone behind the toilet, which nobody sees. But you can silicone all the way around if you prefer, using silicone out of a squeeze tube for the back. I'm using this white kitchen and bath tub and towel silicone. Check out how taking the time with putting the tape makes this step a lot less messy. I don't have to worry about any silicone getting on the floor tile. and it wipes off the porcelain real easy. So I just squeeze until I see enough silicone is touching the toilet and the tape. That's the perfect amount that I will wipe away for a consistent finished look. Now I wet my fingertip with a baby wipe and just run it along the toilet base and floor. Then I wipe the excess silicone off my fingertip and just repeat doing that after every swipe. After a quick wipe of any extra silicone that got on the toilet, I remove the tape. Now you're not done. This process mainly allowed you to neatly apply the right amount of silicone bead around the toilet. The tape leaves a lifted edge you now need to smooth. Now I repeat everything I just did. I wet my fingertip with a baby wipe and just run it along the toilet base and floor, wiping the excess silicone from my fingertip before the next swipe. Notice here in the front, the silicone smeared a bit on the floor, so I use a baby wipe wrapped tight to my finger, and after a few swipes it leaves the silicone smooth and the floor clean. Here's a quick shot how it came out. Nice, right? Anything decorative is a challenge for me, and the tape makes it dummy proof doing it this way. Now check this out. This started after the repair of the flange.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
So I obviously can't leave it like that. After turning the water off and draining the tank like you saw me at the beginning of the video, I need to remove the tank to look at the tank to bowl gasket. I have my flathead to hold the top of the bolt and use my ratchet to loosen the nut. Then unscrew it the rest of the way by hand. On the other side, I unscrew the toilet supply line, and again I use my ratchet to loosen the nut, then unscrew it the rest of the way by hand. I need to remove the plastic washer that is tight to the bolt, but a wiggle of the tank pulls it off and drops it. Here's everything I removed. So now I remove the tank and I put it down on some cardboard so I can work on it. You don't want to put the tank directly on your tile floor. Check out the tank to bowl gasket. It's in real bad condition, cracked up, and obviously the reason the tank leaked when flushed. That's why the water came out the side, and it goes on here like this. The big box stores didn't have this American Standard one, so I ordered it from Amazon. I took everything out of the packaging and removed the old bolts by pushing them back into the tank, including the rubber washers. I go ahead and install the new rubber washers and insert the new bolts. The old ones were still good, but you might as well change them out while you have everything apart. I spin the tank around and install the new gasket. I next give the wall a quick cleaning, but more importantly, I clean where the gasket seals to the bowl. Then I give the gasket one last push before flipping the tank, lining the bolts up with the holes, and putting it back on the bowl. Here's a quick shot so you can see how everything looks so far. All that's left is to put the plastic washers on and screw on the nuts. Here's a close-up shot on this side so you can see how this goes. These plastic washers are kind of hard to push onto the bolt because they are a tight fit. But once you push it up a little bit, you can screw on the nut. Then I just use my extension and socket to screw the nut by hand as far as I can get it to go before it gets too hard to turn. You can see from this shot how I'm using my flathead screwdriver in the tank to hold the bolt from spinning as I turn the nut from below. Then I grab the ratchet to finish this off. You do not want to over tighten these bolts and crack the tank. I jump from one side to the other and try to tighten the two sides equally. Once I feel one side is about as tight as the other side by the resistance on the nut, I jump back to the other side and give it a few more turns. I continue this, giving the tank a wiggle in between until it doesn't shake and is tight to the bowl. Here's a shot from inside the tank at the new bolts and rubber washers. This should last many years without leaking again. I reinstall the supply line and put the tank lid back on. I want to show you one last thing. This is a pumice stone. Let me show you what I'm going to use it for. I get it wet in the sink. Now you normally use this in the bowl to remove stains that don't come out with a toilet brush, but I'm going to use it to get off these scratches on the outside of the toilet bowl. You just sand the scratches out, wiping with a towel in between, checking on your progress. Check it out. Then I remove rust spots that were around the old toilet bolts. Here's a close-up shot so you can see how the rust and scratches are gone. Off camera, I got these two that you will see now during the reveal. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this video helped you out on how to repair a broken toilet flange, also how to replace your tank to bowl gasket and get scratches off your porcelain toilet. How did it come out? Let me know in the comments below. Here's a flush so you can see how no more water is leaking out the side of the tank. But even more importantly, here's a reminder how the toilet was jacked up in the front, ready to take off to the moon. And now how it looks after the repair. Now my mom doesn't have to worry that her guests are thinking the toilet's broken when they use it. Please remember to hit the thumbs up if you like this video, and be sure to subscribe to see more home DIY videos like this. Click on any of these links on the screen to check out my other home DIY videos. One I show you how to install a dishwasher, the other how to install a heavy light. Thanks again for watching. Bye everyone.